Canada. Maple syrup and like Captain say, ay, kick your ass all hockey season, ay, now teach me riding horses, ay, yeah, this is Canada.
We have to focus on what we can do and what we can control. That's all we can do. And this is, by the way, something that Mark Carney has said, and I agree with him. He has said that we cannot control what the U.S. president says or does. We can control what we do on this side of the border in our own national interest. And by focusing on what we can control, then we can determine our own destiny.
What do you say to Canadians who say, well, you know, Mark Carney is already looking at these priorities. He's talking about growth. He's talking about diversification. He's talking about industrial strategy. So what's different in your approach?
Well, you use the right verbs. He's looking at, he's talking about. And he has been looking and talking quite a lot over the last year. But here are the realities. He has not signed a single new free trade agreement anywhere on earth. Not one. We rushed through special powers under Bill C-5 for him to rapidly approve projects a year ago. How many has he approved under that process? 0. How many new pipelines are approved? 0. Interprovincial trade barriers remain. The only tax reform we've had is that he's renamed the carbon tax the clean fuel standard. So it is time to go from all of these conversations to actually delivering real results, given that it has now been a year.
There you have it, guys. Whether you agree with Pierre Poilievre's policies or not, I mean, the guy has a point. The guy has a point on all of those points. He has a point on all of those points. It has been a year. No project has actually been signed and agreed on. We have all of these major infrastructure projects being discussed, being ideated on. Nothing's been signed. Nothing's being pushed. All what has been pushed and what has been signed is $1.5 billion to First Nations, more carbon tax. We keep advertising ourselves as being carbon competitive in a world that is slowly moving away from the whole ESG agenda. So I don't know what that even matters for. It's probably just making us extremely price uncompetitive globally. Today is what is today? It's Wednesday, March 4th. My name is Miloš Krajčnik. This is the Canadian Sovereigntist. Now, and I purposely put the Pierre Poilievre video there because I want to talk about this story we got pulled. I got shown on this. I'm showing on the screen right now. The Churchill Port signs development and trade partnership with massive Belgian terminal. And this is apparently supposed to be Canada's big announced play against U.S. tariff pressure. The Port of Churchill is a northern Manitoba port that runs 4 months a year and needs billions in upgrades. And they've just signed a partnership with a Belgian port operator to figure out how to develop it. This is Canada's sovereignty move, guys. We found the resource. We hired someone else to tell us what to do with it. And it's just a pattern that happens all across the board. It happens with our pipelines. It happens with our natural minerals. Any mine, any pipeline, it's always, oh, what foreigners can help us fund it? Oh, we need an oil pipeline. Oh, let's go call the Emiratis, the UAE, to see which sheikh has enough money in their sovereign wealth fund to help us fund our own pipeline. Another oil nation is going to help us. We need money from them to help us. Another oil nation, the one with the third largest oil reserves in the world, to help fund a pipeline. It makes no sense. This is that pattern that is consistent with Canadian politics. Is we apparently never have our own money to do our own infrastructure projects. It's crazy. I just wonder why that is. Let's get into it, though. The operator of the Port of Churchill has signed an agreement with the Port of Antwerp-Bruges, one of the world's largest cargo shipping facilities, to collaborate on design and business development as well as future trade as the Northern Manitoba site plans a multi-billion-dollar expansion. Under the agreement, Arctic Gateway Group, which runs the Churchill port and the railway that feeds it, and the Belgian Port of Antwerp-Bruges will cooperate on drafting plans for port intermodal facilities at Churchill and identify new and expanded cargo types between Western Canada and Europe. Critical minerals, energy products, fertilizer, feedstock, containers, and agricultural commodities are priority areas. The the company said on Tuesday. Churchill's expansion is not yet a sure thing, but it is touted as a candidate to be one of the projects that Prime Minister Mark Carney's government deems to be in the national interest and worthy of fast-track approvals. Its backers say the port could serve as a base for new global trade routes for commodities as Canada seeks to cut reliance on the United States amid the tariff war waged by President Donald Trump. Now, I want to just touch on this because what's happening between the U.S. and Canada is not a tariff war. I really don't like how the mainstream media, and this is a minor digression, I really don't like how the mainstream media keeps framing this as a trade war. The U.S. is not at war with Canada. This is a very toxic narrative that is being pushed actively in all medias, in all Canadian media, that we're in some kind of trade war. The U.S. put 10%, there's tariffs on 10% of the goods that are a part of our USMCA free trade agreement. So 90% of the goods going south are tariff free. Okay. If the U.S. really wanted to hurt Canada, they would put tariffs on everything. And they would put very high tariffs on everything. That's how you hurt Canada with tariffs. You don't hurt it by being very selective. It hurts Canada because we don't have our own domestic economy to rely on, because we're that heavily reliant on the U.S. that it actually hurts us. The U.S. has the right to reshore its companies if it wants to. It sucks for us, it does, but they have the right to do that. This is not a trade war. This isn't the U.S. and China going head to head around something. I really needed to emphasize that. But I want to stop here anyways, because it's there's a couple of things that we've just read, like it's not a sure thing yet. That phrase is buried in that fourth paragraph in the article, and it's being sold as Canada's answer to U.S. tariff pressure. That's insane. The other thing is that the expansion is unconfirmed, and there are no actual federal dollars mentioned in the article themselves. So we don't really know how much any of this is going to cost. Another interesting point is that the port actually only runs for 4 months of the year, and the icebreaker capability needed to make it run year round is still being studied in a separate partnership with the Montreal Shipping Company. Guys, this is that Canadian pattern that I mentioned. The U.S. applies economic pressure. Canada calls a press conference. We announce a planning agreement to study the feasibility of maybe building something down the line that could eventually reduce some kind of dependence on the U.S. On top of that, guys, Churchill has been underfunded and underdeveloped for decades. And it's not because the resource potential was never there. It's because Canadian politicians never made it a priority until it became politically embarrassing not to. That's the problem. It's become politically embarrassing. This is not sovereignty, guys. This is scrambling, and scrambling is not the same thing as building. However, the facility on the coast of Hudson Bay requires major upgrades as well as ice-breaking capability to prolong a shipping season that is currently just 4 months long. AGG is studying those needs in partnership with FedNav Limited, a Montreal-based maritime transport company. Chris Avery, AGG's chief CEO, said the agreement will help Churchill achieve its main objective of diversifying trade for Canadian commodities and doing so in partnership with the second largest port in the European Union. Antwerp moves nearly 300 million tons of cargo a year, and that's beyond. And beyond that, we're also working with them. In terms of our development, the Port of Churchill is still at a stage where we're building it back up and potentially building it even bigger than it was before, Mr. Avery said it in an interview from Toronto, where the parties held a signing ceremony on Tuesday at a major mining conference. With an organization like the Port of Antwerp having their development arm work with us and assist us with not only understanding where the customers are, but also the infrastructure and the terminals and requirements of the customers, it's a huge benefit to us. I want to stop right here because there's a couple of things that I think we need to unpack here real quick. And it's kind of sitting in that quote. A Canadian port CEO just said it is a huge benefit to have a Belgian port operator help us understand where our customers are and what infrastructure we need to serve them, guys. Belgium is not an Arctic nation. They're pretty high north, but it's not an Arctic nation. They have no experience with ice, with northern logistics, with specific challenges of the Hudson Bay. Their expertise is in cargo throughput and terminal design for a temperate European port. I mean, it's legitimate experience that they have. It's proper expertise, but it is expertise that Canada should have been building domestically for the last 30 years, guys. This is what sovereignty erosion looks like in practice. It is not always a foreign government buying a Canadian company. Sometimes it is a Canadian port operator needing to call Belgium up to find out who wants to buy our own resources and how to build the infrastructure to move them. We have world-class commodities, guys, and we are outsourcing the blueprint for how to sell them. It's crazy. It's crazy when you read this. It's crazy. And if Churchill is truly of national interest, guys, a project of national interest, why does national interest require a foreign development partner to design it? Asking for a friend. The partners will also look for opportunities for the Port of Antwerp-Bruges to fund the joint studies and trade development for Churchill, they said. The Port of Antwerp-Bruges said last week it plans to install an advanced air defense system with the first unit operational by next year over concerns about increasing numbers of unregistered drones flying above the terminal. So, guys, Antwerp, it's not just advising, guys. They're looking for opportunities to fund these joint studies in this trade development as well. There's a foreign port operator that is being invited to fund the development of Canadian trade infrastructure. That means that they will want a return on their investment, which is normal. This is how that works. You ask for foreign direct investment, and then they ask, how much money are we going to make? That's how that works. Fernav is a private Montreal shipping company, and Antwerp is a foreign port operator, guys. If Churchill becomes a real trade corridor, who owns the terminals? Who captures the shipping, the margins on shipping? Who controls the pricing on moving Canadian critical minerals to European buyers? Guys, Canada has done this before. We found oil. We asked for foreign capital to build the pipelines, and then they captured all of the margin. We find minerals, and then foreign asset managers hold the mining equity. The pattern is consistent, guys. Canada always supplies the resources. Someone else builds the infrastructure and then monetizes on it, and then we call it trade. Churchill could be different, but nothing in this article is telling us that it will be, guys. And a planning agreement with a foreign port operator is not sovereignty, guys. It is the first step in a very familiar transaction. Why is it that we can never have a wholly Canadian operation going on? I honestly, I don't understand. We're all proud of our $2 trillion economy, but this $2 trillion economy just simply never has money. I find it amazing. I find it truly amazing. And this is why all of this matters to Canadians. The U.S. is reshoring its economy, guys. And Canadian politics are not just politicians. They're just being forced to ask a question that they've avoided for 40 years, guys. And it's what happens when our single biggest customer decides to buy less from us. Churchill is the right instinct overall. A northern trade corridor to Europe moving critical minerals and agricultural commodities is exactly what economic sovereignty looks like when politicians actually try. But the try has to be real. Like right now, it's just a planning agreement that the port runs 4 months of the year. The ice-breaking problem is unresolved. Like, they're not forcing the issue. The federal dollars are uncommitted. They haven't said how much money they're going to be investing in it or how much they're willing to invest in it at all. And we've invited a Belgian port operator to help us figure out our own infrastructure. Like, come on. Like, we don't have engineers in Canada. We have no engineers in Canada that can sit down, look at best practices globally, and figure this out. Honestly, really? I can't. I don't believe that we can't do this. Guys, Canadians should want Churchill to work. Absolutely. But we should also demand to know who will own this project, who's going to profit from it, and what Canada will actually control when it's done. Because if we don't control the money flows in our own infrastructure, then we're not even a middleman. We're being economically abused. That's all I have for you guys today. Please like, share, and subscribe. Let me know what you think in the comments section below. Stay informed, stay curious, and God bless Canada.
This is Canada.